Hello, I'm Patrice King-Brown. Patty and Stacy have the night off. Coming up next, someone is passing out counterfeit money in the Pittsburgh area. We'll have a live report. A co-valedictorian of Walter-Dice High School was accused of cheating. He answers those allegations. Plus, Pittsburghers pray for a settlement in the newspaper strike. Details are next on Eyewitness News tonight.
New Rainier Draft Beer, fresh as the Northwest Mountains, icy, cold taste, cold filter, and now within your reach. New Rainier Draft and Draft Light, seriously cold, totally cool.
You're not from around here, are you?
This is the commercial Bell Atlantic doesn't want you to see.
You get it?
Yeah.
What'd you find out?
Well, it covers a wider area than ours.
So?
So it's got more listings.
And
it's easy to use.
how many people know about it?
5 to 6 million.
We got a problem. A big problem.
The Donnelly Directory, the book Bell Atlantic doesn't want you to read.
After a devastating illness or accident, you feel like all the life has gone out of you until you find, somewhere, the courage to come back. For people who need that special care but can't afford it, now there's the Courage Fund at St. Francis. Give what you can. Help someone take that first step. Give someone the courage to come back.
New Rainier Draft Beer, fresh as the Northwest Mountains, icy, cold taste, cold filter, and now within your reach. New Rainier Draft and Draft Light, seriously cold, totally cool.
We wanted the light.
You're watching KDKA TV2. Now, live from Gateway Center, this is Eyewitness News Tonight.
Good evening. Be on the lookout for counterfeit money in this area. That's the word tonight from local police agencies after numerous banks and businesses reported seeing a sudden increase in counterfeit $20 bills. Among other places, some of the fake money has popped up on the south side. That's where Ralph Iannotti is tonight. Ralph?
Well, Patrice, a word of caution for you tonight. If you deal with the public, if you happen to work in the bank or in a bank, or if you operate a business, be on the alert for bogus $20 bills. Here at Chauncey's, in one of their daily deposits recently, 18 fake $20 bills showed up. And just last weekend, another counterfeit $20 bill turned up. And here on the south side, this is not the only place where this bogus money is showing up. Laura Stokes manages the Natural Wonder store in the Ross Park Mall. A counterfeit bill showed up in one of her store bank deposits a couple of weeks ago, and she remembers where it came from.
Actually, the body language is what tipped me off. He was very nervous. He kept shrugging his shoulders and rubbing the back of his head, and it was very obvious that he was agitated about something. I kind of thought he was going to pick up something in the store. You know, after a while in retail, you kind of get a feel for that kind of thing. Never occurred to me that he was going to pass a counterfeit bill. That's the first time we've had one here.
Altogether, counterfeit incidents have been reported from at least a dozen stores in the Ross Park Mall alone.
It's probably unlikely that that individual will come back. You know, they hit an area at 1 or 2 days, and obviously after passing that many bills, you know, they know that somebody's going to be looking for them. So I would advise all the neighboring communities that have big shopping centers and big malls to maybe spread that word to their malls to be looking out for this subject and also the counterfeit money.
This is the composite police have put out based on the description of a store clerk. The suspect is white, in his late 20s or early 30s, with a medium build. He had black curly hair and a receding hairline. The bogus bills look old or worn. The Federal Reserve Bank letter is G or K. The series number is 1988A. The check letter on the bogus bills is C. The faceplate number is 36. And the serial numbers begin with the letter G or K. Now, the U.S. Secret Service, which of course investigates cases of counterfeit money, must have its hands full lately because of this flurry of fake money showing up. Perhaps that's the reason why they haven't had time to return our calls the past couple of days when we were looking for more answers about the counterfeiting that's going on. Patrice, back to you.
Thank you very much, Ralph. A co-valedictorian at Taylor Alderdice High School is denying accusations tonight that he cheated. The Wall Street Journal reported yesterday that cheating was rampant at the school and mentioned student Lean Grinberg by name. According to the paper, Grinberg was accused of cheating on classroom exams and on the SAT.
I thought that the allegations were I mean, preposterous, and they have absolutely no basis in fact at all. And they have caused a tremendous amount of embarrassment for myself and my family and even my friends. I mean, it's been a nightmare. I'd like to forget it, but I can't. I have to deal with it right now. And what we're doing right now is we're discussing the possibilities of a lawsuit with my attorney, and we'll see where it goes from there.
School administrators say they can't deny that some cheating takes place at Alderdice, but that the Wall Street Journal article portrayed it unfairly. Pennsylvania now has a spending plan. Governor Casey signed it into law just moments ago, meeting the midnight deadline. There are no details of what was specifically cut, but the governor did use his line-item veto power to trim more than $70 million. He was working with a draft of the budget passed yesterday by the House. That plan included a freeze on state aid to public schools and a 1% cut in welfare spending. The 35-year-old man who received a transplanted liver from a baboon remains in critical condition tonight, but he's breathing on his own. Today, he sat in a chair and watched television. Surgeons at Presbyterian University Hospital say the next 7 to 10 days will be the most critical. That's when rejection is most likely to occur. There's a new study underway at the University of Pittsburgh on a drug widely used to fight breast cancer. That drug is called tamoxifen. One of the doctors examining it spoke to people at Westmoreland Hospital tonight. He says despite the testing, the drug is not new.
It is actually not an experimental agent. It is the largest single drug used in the treatment of breast cancer in the world. In women with breast cancer, it has been a very effective treatment to prevent the recurrence of the disease.
Wickerham says that the study is also to find out whether the drug prevents heart attacks and the bone-thinning disease, osteoporosis. Strawberry Way in downtown Pittsburgh is still blocked off tonight. We drove past moments ago and the street was still closed, no word of when it might reopen. Police blocked off that area after pieces of a building fell into the street. Part of that building's roof came loose. Building inspectors are deciding what they'll do about that problem. People in Beachville were praying tonight for an end to the newspaper strike. The service was organized by one of the union members, saying he hopes it will be a start for more talks.
We hope to bring the Lord into this dispute. We're praying for a peaceful solution to this conflict. We feel that it's hurt a lot of people at the newspaper and in the community.
Cheney invited the mayor and city council, but they didn't come to the prayer session. Teamsters have been on strike against the Pittsburgh Press Company for more than a month. Pittsburgh City Council approved a new pet ordinance today. It raises the licensing fee for dogs from $8 to $10. It also requires dog and cat owners to have proof of their pets' vaccinations. Most dogs have that information on their tags, but cat owners must also provide proof that their pet has been vaccinated for rabies, and if they can't, they could be fined $500. A husband and wife charged with kidnapping Exxon executive Sidney Resso will arraigned today. Arthur Seal pleaded innocent to the charges, but his wife Irene pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of extortion. She has also agreed to testify against her husband. Resso was kidnapped outside.
Was behind the stabbing of 44-year-old J.C. Pettaway. Pettaway of Penn Hills was found stabbed to death Saturday in a hallway at the Liberty Park Apartments in East Liberty. Police say drugs were involved. The County Crime Lab gets a reprieve today. Today was to be the last day of operation for the lab, which processes much of the crime evidence from this area. In an 11th hour bid to the county commissioners, the county commissioners extended the crime lab's life until the end of September. They hope to get reimbursement money from the state or privatize the crime lab in order to keep it open permanently.
Well, the message was unity tonight as the people directly affected by the Pittsburgh newspaper strike called on a higher power in hopes of ending the strike. I was there tonight as they turned to prayer. They gathered in St. Pamphilus Church in Beachview for what was called a Peace Through Unity prayer service. A variety of speakers called for wisdom and understanding on both sides at the bargaining table, and they prayed for the spiritual and financial welfare of the families affected.
If the two sides are going to get together with forgiveness, that Jesus Christ has got to be present. And I think this service tonight will help bring him into the midst of this thing and help settle this labor dispute.
A lot of our people right now are in a situation where the money is a problem right now.
We don't get any unemployment, and it's been a struggle. You have your bills coming in, you have to pay your mortgage. It's been a real struggle.
The prayer service was scheduled after negotiating sessions failed. More than 1,400 employees of the Pittsburgh Press and Post-Gazette have been affected by the labor dispute since May 17.
Those talks broke off and none have been scheduled. Some striking Teamsters hope the power of prayer will help resolve the strike. That's why members of the Unity Council and their families and friends gathered for a prayer vigil in Beachview last night.
We hope to bring the Lord into this dispute. We're praying for a peaceful solution to this conflict. We feel that it's hurt a lot of people at the newspaper and in the community.
Strike is now in its 7th week. Well, attention dog and cat owners, if you reside in Pittsburgh, you have a new law to obey. Yesterday, Pittsburgh Council passed legislation that raises the cost of dog licenses from $8 to $10. It also requires that both dog and cat owners have
a ton of steel in 3 hours, lose his or her job because of a less productive worker in a subsidized foreign factory, one who is making steel at higher cost, only to be dumped in the United States.
If the steel industry wins its case, the government could impose hundreds of millions of dollars in duties.
Channel 11 News expands its weekend coverage.
I'm Lori Savage. I'm Lori Savage. You've told us that weekend morning news is important to you. More and more of you are joining us for Channel 11 News Saturday morning. Well, now you can get the news you've come to depend on for 2 hours on Sunday morning. We bring you the latest news, sports, and weather every Sunday morning from 8 until 10.
Channel 11 News Sunday morning. More news, more often.
The book on Buick quality adds yet another chapter. As reported in USA Today, a nationally renowned quality survey has ranked 2 Buicks in its top 10, Buick Regal and Buick Century. Regal topped both Toyota Camry and Honda Accord. And now, qualified buyers can get up to an astounding $2,000 cash back. $2,000, the better value, the better car. See your Buick connection now.
You're watching Channel 11, WPXI TV, Pittsburgh. The station with more news, more often.
Pittsburgh police search for more weapons following a chaotic scene. Details ahead on the Night Beat.
Now, from the news operation voted best in the state by the Associated Press, this is Channel 11 News Night Beat.
The story on the violence in just a moment, but first a breaking story tonight. A fire in our area claims the lives of 5 people. Good evening, I'm Peggy Finnegan.
And I'm Dave Clark. A sad story. We have a crew on the scene at this Shadyside residence. It broke out less than an hour ago. The Pittsburgh Emergency Medical Services confirms the 5 died in the North Aiken Street home. There are reports now that all 5 are children. Fire crews are still fighting this blaze, and we'll have all the latest information on this as soon as we get it.
A crowd gets violent tonight and police make arrests on the south side. It happened just before a concert was scheduled to start at Station Square. At Station Square, the Rhythm and Blues concert never went on because of the chaos. Pittsburgh police say they made about 12 arrests. Police say the violence may have been sparked by a fight, and an agent for the group Spice One speculates it could be gang-related.
Well, you have neighborhoods, man, and we got some folks that's into those gangs and everything, and one neighborhood don't like this neighborhood, and then when they come together, it's always that kind of thing. Unfortunately, we have that, but yeah, that neighborhood thing, that gang thing.
Police found some guns hidden under cars in the parking lot of Station Square. No word on how many people were injured in tonight's violence.
Well, Meantime, Pittsburgh braces itself for possible violence as the strike-bound Pittsburgh Press gets ready to publish using non-union replacement workers. Today, I visited a Beachview family that includes 3 generations of Pittsburgh Press truck drivers, and these were emotional times for them.
I can't believe this is happening in the city of Pittsburgh.
Jerry Cheney's been a Pittsburgh Press truck driver for 30 years. He's on strike now. His 86-year-old father, Jack, was a driver for 40 years. Now grandson John is a press truck driver as well. At least he was until the strike began.
That they want to break the unions, they want to get rid of us. They want us out of there.
And with replacement workers and security guards in place to put out a non-union paper, I asked Jerry if he expects violence.
I don't think we're going to see violence. That's our president, Joe Molinaro, has repeatedly told everyone to, keep the peace.
We use violence because we didn't have anything other ways to use.
That's what Jack Cheney remembers of the old days at the press for the Teamsters. Now he says there are laws to obey and laws that the unions can rely on. But he has a warning for the Pittsburgh press.
If they use violence, in my opinion, if I were there in my youth, I would give the violence back to them.
We're going to pray for a nonviolent end to this strike. The last thing in the world anybody wants is violence.
And he says they have one special thing going for them.
I think we're part of this town, and I think the people are going to back us.
Well, Jack Cheney told me that in the old days of the Pittsburgh press, it was like family between the workers and management. Not now. At any rate, the Teamsters have scheduled an 11 o'clock news conference for tomorrow morning, and next Tuesday, a prayer vigil will be held right across the street from the newspaper.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Well, police hope things remain calm on the picket lines when presses start rolling again. Our cameras spotted Chief Earl Buford and Assistant Chief Charles Moffett entering the press offices today. Although officials won't say exactly how many extra cops will be on duty over the weekend, we do know the city has canceled all weekend leaves for its officers. Mayor Masloff warns if violence erupts, police will be ready.
If it looks like there's going to be a crowd, we'll then cordon off that one block where the press is, so that there'll be ways to get in and out of the city.
In West Mifflin, extra police may be on hand to keep things under control outside this hotel where replacement drivers are thought to be staying.
Well, Peggy, on top of everything else that's been happening to the
Pittsburgh Press read today, papers delivered as bargaining stalls. But this is the last paper that Pittsburgh's going to see for quite a while. That's because the presses have stopped rolling. Here's how things developed earlier today. Press trucks and their drivers have been targets of widespread vandalism over the past 24 hours. At least 3 people were injured and property damage was mounting. The press said enough is enough, so it voluntarily decided to stop printing. It's a decision that caught the Teamsters by surprise.
I was surprised, but I'm extremely pleased. I viewed this as a sensible move by the company in order for us to get back to the bargaining table and come to a conclusion and get a contract.
After hearing the decision, Molinaro walked over to the press building to tell most of the pickets they could go home.
We're all great to hear that news. We all want to get back to work, though.
I think it's a great day, and they finally come to their senses.
But the general manager of the press insists they did not cave in.
Well, I don't view it as a capitulation at all. We view it as simply a matter of our civic duty. We felt that things were just too dangerous out there. I'm appalled at the lack of protection that the city of Pittsburgh and the other surrounding communities gives to its citizens and to its businesses, and we just felt that it was the best for the community if we did not publish.
Thousands of people joined striking Teamsters tonight in a candlelight vigil in front of the press building. The prayer meeting came hours after the press company said that it was going to suspend the publication of the newspapers until further notice. Our Ralph Ionati is downtown now with the latest for us. Ralph, what's up?
Well, Patty, it's relatively quiet outside the press building tonight here on the Boulevard of the Allies. There are some pickets here on both sides of the building on the Boulevard of the Allies and on the entrance on Fort Pitt Boulevard, but the situation is very calm. There's no trouble or anything. Patty, you know, this is the story that just seemingly will not go away. It began on May 17th when Teamsters Local 411 went on strike basically after being asked to commit suicide, when the company said we're going to eliminate 450 of the 600 or so jobs that the press people had. In this strike that has dragged on for so many weeks, the last 48 hours, of course, have been the longest. For Teamsters, for police, for the press company, for people who work for the Post-Gazette and the Pittsburgh Press. But tonight, at least for the time being, a calm has returned here, and so has a sense of relief now.
Come tonight to offer our prayers to this God who in all truth cares for all of us.
It was a story that would not appear in tomorrow's Press and Post-Gazette. The reason was simple. The papers would not publish after the press announced it was discontinuing its two-day-o effort to try to publish and distribute, fearing violence. The mood here was relaxed. Police estimated the crowd at about 5,000. There was no trouble and very little jeering for that matter, even when several vans loaded with what appeared to be replacement workers carrying overnight bags and luggage left the press parking lot. This was a far cry from the scene here Sunday night when thousands of Teamsters poured into the streets to prevent movement of delivery trucks.
The replacement workers, you got to stop these people coming in from out of state and, taking jobs from people in our community.
You have the same people here under different circumstances. You have to understand that. A couple of days ago, they were put in a position by an employer who was willing to bring in professional strike breakers to take our jobs. Today, they suspend publication, okay? And you see that the mood of the crowd has changed dramatically.
I'm not going to apologize for trying to provide the community with a newspaper. I think if there's an apology anywhere, it might come from the other side. But that's, we didn't hurt anybody. We didn't do any damage to any property. We simply tried to print and distribute a newspaper.
We don't want a bad labor climate in Pittsburgh. There's just no question about that. Although, like everything else, it'll blow over. Pittsburgh's a good city to live in and do business.
And what else could seemingly go wrong for the papers? Even before the press announced it was suspending publication, the Newspaper Guild of the Post-Gazette was trying to sort things out.
We had a membership meeting of the Newspaper Guild, and overwhelmingly we voted to withhold our bylines. Those are the lines that indicate who wrote the story. The reason for doing this is we wanted to show our opposition to the tactics of the press, using scab labor, replacement workers.
And the story and pictures that won't appear tomorrow in Pittsburgh's local papers. The thousands of people who marched peacefully in front of the press building with candles and who threw flowers symbolizing peace on a pile of newspapers in front of the main entrance. Now, we learned tonight that press newsroom employees this afternoon were told to take the rest of the week off with pay for some rest and relaxation. They are supposed to report back Monday when the situation will be reassessed. And Patty, while this story is far from over tonight, perhaps one union member not affiliated with the Teamsters or the Unity Council put it best tonight when he said to me, "Ralph, the score after tonight, unions won, the press nothing." Back to you.
All right, Ralph, thank you very much for that report. Now, Governor Casey is applauding the press's decision. He wrote a letter to all of the parties involved, encouraged round-the-clock negotiations. Now, the governor said, quote, "I would like to reiterate my concerns about the adverse impact this dispute continues to have on the economic well-being of the Pittsburgh region and the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In the public interest, I urge you to conduct round-the-clock negotiations with federal mediators." Governor Casey said the State Office of Labor and Industry would help in any way possible. In other news, tonight in Garfield, people were remembering those 5 children who died last Friday in that house for
time, and it tied up hundreds of police officers.
And rousing speeches.
I know this is a prayer service, but I also know this, and I was taught this in theology. In critical times, religious people cannot remain neutral. And so I'm telling you, I'm partial, I'm prejudiced, I'm for the working person.
During Father O'Malley's call to arms, someone in the crowd of union members and tradesmen pointed out that Jesus was a carpenter. City Councilman Dwayne Darkins used that line and came up with this.
That Jesus unionized heaven.
The rally was over, but union supporters remained for a long, long time, and I spoke to union attorney Joe Pass, who told me the rally meant one thing to him: dignity. Dignity for the American worker. As the newly printed presses were piling up at the paper's front door, you could sense that feeling of dignity among those gathered, and a feeling of indignation against the company.
Now, as for Wednesday, the union says talks are planned for later today, and clearly the momentum is on the side of the Teamsters.
Dave, company management was invited to the vigil. Did anyone show up?
Well, no one took the microphone. No real surprise there, of course, but you could see people in the upper floors of the press building watching from windows to down below.
Well, union workers view it as good news, of course, that the press suspended publication, a victory for labor. But as Margaret Shortridge tells us, the press sees things a bit differently.
As they walk to the vigil, union supporters toss their paper on the doorstep of the press building, many feeling satisfaction in knowing that these are the last papers that'll be printed, at least for a while.
Great day for labor, yes.
Even Jimmy Manis, general manager of the press, sarcastically admitted it was a great day for labor. Manis says the press suspended publication after acts of violence directed at out-of-state temporary replacement workers. There were injuries and more than 50 arrests in 2 days. Manis says he feared someone would get seriously hurt. But Teamster President Joe Molinaro claims there's another reason.
He could say what he wants. It was because the people of Pittsburgh will not accept the tactics that the Pittsburgh press put out. They will not accept bringing strikebreakers into the city.
Manis says the community and some government officials are against his company.
I'm appalled at the lack of protection that the city of Pittsburgh and the other surrounding communities gives to its citizens and to its businesses.
Pittsburgh Mayor Sophie Masloff claims she did provide thousands of dollars worth of police protection, but she admits she canceled her own subscription.
Well, I'd like to say I'm neutral. I'd like to think I'm neutral, but I hate this unpleasantness, and the potential for danger worried me. And I wanted them to negotiate. And I didn't believe that they were negotiating in good faith.
It's going to be a while before we see another Pittsburgh Press or a Post-Gazette around here. The paper says it isn't sure when it will resume publications, and it may not be until after the strike is over. In Pittsburgh, Margaret Shortridge, Channel 11 News.
And also no word tonight on when, if ever, the press will resume publication of the Allegheny Bulletin. That's the paper the press had been sending through the mail during the strike. A sad and unsettling case of church vandalism in our area. Police in Washington County tell us the...
Stop the press! Stop the press! Stop the press! Scabs go home! Scabs go home! Our city is our job! Our city is our job! Our city is our job!
A lot of angry messages have been delivered in the last 2 days by supporters of striking newspaper delivery men. But the single most significant one was stated rather calmly by the lawyer for Teamsters Local 211.
Pittsburgh is a very strong labor town. It's really the cradle of organized labor.
Management at the Pittsburgh Press Company, publishers of both the Press and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, recognized that today as they called off their abortive 2-day attempt to break the delivery people's 70-day walkout with replacement workers brought in from out of state. In Pittsburgh, those two moves, reopening a struck facility and importing strikebreakers, triggered not just anger and violence, it triggered historical memory.
It seems ironic, 100 years ago this month, Andrew Carnegie and Henry Frick attempted to break the steelworker strike at Homestead. And of course, they were successful with the assistance of a militia.
This time, Pass happily observed, things were different. The public supported the strikers, and
they didn't have the aid of the militia to further their objectives.
In fact, said the vice president and general manager of the press company, uniformed police, far from helping break the strike, helped the strikers.
I'm appalled at the lack of protection that the city of Pittsburgh and the other surrounding communities gives to its citizens and to its businesses.
Reporters on the street said police did intervene in some cases of violence, at least trying to calm the angry strikers and keep them away from the replacements. They had some success. Car windows were smashed, tires were slashed, scattered newspaper distribution centers were immobilized, but there were few injuries, and none of them apparently were serious. There were also relatively few arrests, and the police, like a lot of public officials, did seem to sympathize, if not with the strikers' actions, at least with their plight as victims of aggressive employers.
I tried to stay neutral. I canceled my personal subscription at the point where the press brought in an alternative non-union paper and hired workers from outside of Pittsburgh.
People really, I think, when they see an attempt to break a union like this, they know what the issues are at stake, and they feel, I think, an instinctive sense of support for it.
I think the basic issue is the right of the worker to protect themselves against an employer that thinks they can just run over their workers. And I think that malaise has set in since the air traffic controller strike and continues to seem to permeate a great segment of American industry today. And I think the workers are finally standing up and going to be heard.
In Patco, there were lots of issues, work rules, wages. And I think the public, especially in a place like Pittsburgh that's been hit really hard by job loss, knows and understands what job loss means. That if these blue-collar jobs go, if these 600 blue-collar jobs go, those people are probably going to be working at minimum wage or a little bit better above that. They know that when those jobs are gone, they just don't come back by magic.
Late today, the press company said it would restore about 175 of the 450 delivery jobs it had cut and called that a deal maker.
Suppose I tell you that's no longer an issue.
Is that no longer an issue?
I think that that is the case. That's not an issue. That's not part of what's left.
Union officials reached tonight insisted they had not resolved the job cut issue. But what they had done, they claimed, was won a victory. There's another thing labor and management strongly disagree on.
I don't think you can characterize it as a victory for labor. I think you can characterize it maybe as a sad day for labor if that's the behavior that we can expect as business people from the people who work for us.
Sad was also a word for the strike-breaking papers, short of news, all but absent of advertising. The one advertiser in the paper claimed he'd been hoaxed, falsely assured there would be other advertisers. He asked for his ad to be pulled, and he wanted his money back. But after this two-day experiment in strike-breaking had failed, both sides claimed they were now ready to resume peaceful bargaining.
Well, it changes something. I think we can get down to bargaining, which we're trying to do. That's certainly the object of getting this matter resolved.
And nothing's settled, but I would say we're not that far apart.
So at the end of the day, Mayor Maslow said there was a new message to read in all these events.
I'm trying to send a message to the nation and everybody that Pittsburgh is a town that can settle its disputes over the bargaining table.
A lot of people hope Mayor Maslow is right about that last, but more of them see the message of the day as simple and unchanged. In the words of Teamster local president Joe Molinaro,
this is a union time. I would say that.
Get that right! Get that right!
Was this just union thuggery, the substitution of violence for responsible bargaining, or was it a just lesson to a publisher arrogant to his workers and out of touch with his town? You'll hear eloquent arguments on both sides of that question tonight, and you'll hear in Pittsburgh a sneaking suspicion that what went down here might have been historic. An end to labor's doldrums of the 1980s, a return to the sense that working people in bad times can best help one another by banding together, a sense that Pittsburgh might for a second time have been a cradle to the union movement. I'm Dave Marish for Nightline in Pittsburgh.
And when we come back, we will be joined by 4 Pittsburgh residents who see the bigger stakes in this long strike in just a moment.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Charles Schwab.
Today, Tech-Tred Shoe Corporation announced a major retail expansion in 25 U.S. cities.
When I see a company that looks like a good investment, I check it out myself.
We make it easier to follow your own lead.
At Charles Schwab, I can get quotes, financial news, and when I make a trade, commission savings.
Always there to give you just the help you need.
Help yourself at Schwab today.
There's more than new looks to the '93 Ford Escort. There's a whole new way to buy an Escort, because these 4 Escort LXs all share one low price, $10,499. The 3-door, 4-door sedan, 5-door, and wagon all have air conditioning, AM/FM stereo, power steering, power mirrors, and more. 4 Escorts, one price. Now buying an Escort's as easy as owning one.
Have you driven a Ford lately?
You love me, Magic. Go for it, Magic. Go, Magic. Go, Magic. Go, Magic.
Love you, Magic.
Go, Magic. Go, Magic. Good luck, Magic. Go, Magic. Go, Magic.
From all of us at Pepsi, go get a Magic.
Born out of a tradition of quality, designed with the comfort you deserve, the style you demand. Buick LeSabre, the automobile named a Best Buy in both Consumer's Digest and Motor Trend. Now with cashback up to $1,000 and announcing 3.9% financing for up to 48 months. An amazing savings opportunity on a terrific automobile. See your Buick connection and drive away the quality of LeSabre.
When you go to an accredited hospital, you expect the best care, right? Well, the truth about accreditation may shock you on ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings tomorrow. Mike Stout is a struggling print shop owner now, but he was a steel worker for 10 years, and he was active in his union until 1985, when the USX Homestead Works outside Pittsburgh was closed. As a freelance writer, Diane Rita doesn't have to deal directly with union management issues, but on this strike, she says she sides with management. Jacques Kahn heads the Golden Triangle Association. That's a group that promotes business in downtown Pittsburgh. He says he has worked hard to help the city shed its image as, in his words, a union hornet's nest. Mr. Stout, Ms. Rita, and Mr. Kahn all join us from our Pittsburgh affiliate WTAE. Now, we're also joined by the Reverend Thomas Smith, who is the pastor of the Monumental Baptist Church. Members there have mixed feelings on the strike, and he joins us from his church, one of the largest of the black churches in the Pittsburgh area. Mr. Stout, I know you have very strong feelings about what's been going on in Pittsburgh. Do you have any sympathy for the newspapers who say they're really up against the ropes and they need to make some changes?
I have no sympathy for any corporate raiders that come in, such as Scripps Howard. Most of their board, which doesn't even live in the city of Pittsburgh, made $72 million in clear profit last year, and then comes along and says they got to eliminate 600 jobs, 4,500 carriers, mostly who are kids and teenagers, so they can make more money. I have no sympathy for them at all. And what's more, I'm going to be out there with the workers every chance I can get.
You're saying then that if they say to you, look, we got to do some cutting here, there's no way that we can be in this business unless we have some profits, and by George, if we continue down the road we're going, it's all going to be bad for everybody. You don't buy any of that?
I don't buy any of it, and I think the city of Pittsburgh doesn't buy it. I think the mayor of Pittsburgh doesn't buy it, and I think the city council, and I think the mayors all around Pittsburgh who have joined in sympathy and support for the strikers. I think the hundreds and hundreds of stores that are putting signs up saying we do not sell the Pittsburgh Press and Pittsburgh Post-Gazette have all shown where the city of Pittsburgh stands, and we stand with the working people that made this city what it is today, and we're going to stand with them until this battle is over.
Ms. Rita, that's a sentiment that we have heard throughout this this long strike. No sense of sympathy for the unions, for the management side at all.
That's correct. Pittsburgh is a very supportive of its unions, and it has a long history in the labor movement. But what I think we're seeing is a trend that's going on all across the country. There are very few cities the size of Pittsburgh that still have their newspapers delivered in the traditional way by kids on bicycles, without the benefit of a centralized distribution system and adult carriers. And I think what we're seeing is simply a good business decision on the part of the press.
Well, what a lot of these folks in the union are saying is, you know, they came in here, they're cutting these jobs back, they don't have to do that, they could hold these jobs in here and still have a fair profit. What they're doing is kind of raiding our town.
I don't think so. I'm sorry whenever anyone loses their job, because I've been the victim of layoffs and members of my family have been laid off from different professions. And this is a particularly emotional issue because it not only involves adults losing their jobs, but it involves the kids who are carriers. And the Teamsters have made a lot of hay out of that with these kids in front of the evening news cameras. Even urging them to go around behind the delivery people today and pick up papers that had been delivered by non-union carriers. But I think that we need to just keep in mind the fact that it's a business decision. A union that truly advocated its members, that was truly standing up for its members, would have realized that this was coming a long time ago and started to make plans, maybe negotiated retraining packages or compensation packages. For us, this is not a new story. This has been news for almost a year here in this city. We've known it was coming.
Reverend Smith, you look at this from a different perspective, from a little bit to the side. How does it look to you?
Well, I'm very much concerned about the issue, concerned about both sides of the issue, because we have to have employment opportunities available in the city. We've already been devastated with the loss of a substantial number of jobs in the city and in this region. And we need to make sure that employers are here to provide the employment. But on the other hand, we're also concerned that they are not corporate raiders, that they are able to live with a decent profit margin and do not attempt to gouge the market or attempt to cut labor's benefits to the extent that the workers cut back to minimum wage jobs. So I'm concerned about both sides of that. I'm also concerned about how African American community is being played on both sides of this issue. While they used African Americans to help break the strike, in which we're concerned about their safety, we're also concerned about the union side of it, in that it's very hard for African Americans to become a part of the union to get some of those jobs. So I have mixed, and the community has mixed emotions about both sides of this issue.
Are you saying really that you see that members of your community are being used as a pawn by both sides?
Yes, we're being used by both sides, and even the police chief, who was the second black police chief in Pittsburgh, is being blamed by both sides of not enough police protection for both sides. So we're being used as a pawn in a number of ways in this issue.
Mr. Kahn, what does that mean, a Union hornet's nest? Why do you say that Pittsburgh used to be seen that way?
Well, Mr. Sawyer, when I arrived in town many years ago, we were not only called a smoky city, and we were an industrial center and a manufacturing center. And at that time, the unions were, and our town had a reputation, unfortunately, for being a union hornet's nest. I think it's a 100-year anniversary of a terrible strike in this city. But I'm a public relations man, and I work on behalf of the city. I promote the city, the down parts, and I'm sitting right at the moment in the middle. I guess that's where I belong, between the gentleman on my right from the union and the young lady entrepreneur on my left. And I'm very concerned about what this is doing at the moment. I'm worried about the image of our city. I've watched us come from a smoky industrial manufacturing center with a union and a manufacturing reputation through several decades of renaissance, and watched the city become involved in technology, medical center, educational center, a whole new image. And now suddenly, and we worked hard to clean that image. We became the most livable city, and I think we were the most workable city. Have you ever heard the old expression, it's a quotation, that whether the rock hits the pitcher or the pitcher hits the rock, it's the pitcher that gets broken. And at the moment, whether the newspapers win or the union wins, it's Pittsburgh that's getting broken. I'm terribly concerned about your interest in our city at this moment, and whether you're going to give us an image of being a union problem city at the moment. We're also a corporate headquarters, and there are good people on both sides, and there are good issues on both sides.
All right, sir, let us look for in just a moment when we come back to where there might be solutions so that we don't paint Pittsburgh in too dark a picture.
Thank you.
In just a moment.
Beauty, wake up! Is Prince Charming coming? No, but the new boss may be. Better revive with Vivarin. Vivarin? It wakes me up and it's safe as coffee.
Great proposal, Stacy. Really alert.
Revive with Vivarin.
In high school, Sharon Simpson used to call me Pinhead. So at the 10-year class reunion, I drive up in my new Eagle Talon TSI all-wheel drive.
And what did she say?
Nice car, Pinhead.
My big brother says his Eagle Talon has 195 horses under the hood.
Oh, so you're looking for the horsies?
No, I'm checking out the intercooled turbocharger.
How does spring rain feel?
Like the world is fresh and brand new.
Introducing Spring Rain Freshness, Massengill's crystal clear douche that washes away odor completely.
Trust Massengill to make you feel this fresh and clean.
Parenthood is an exciting time, especially when you're just beginning. It can also be a time full of questions. How can you prepare older children for the newest family member? How can early infant stimulation enhance your baby's development? McGee Women's Hospital, in partnership with Thrift Drug, provides free brochures that can help you with these and other important questions. Pick up these brochures at your neighborhood Thrift Drug store or call McGee Women's Hospital at 412-647-4016 for a complete list of topics.
For all of you who have concerns about breast problems, you may also have questions about your diagnosis, about what it means, and what to do next. Shouldn't there be someone you can talk to, someone you can call, a place you can go? But who?
from a Toyota sales event. Your Toyota dealer is offering you deals to make you sing. Now is the best time to get Corolla, one of the top 10 models in initial quality. Get up to $1,100 in option package savings, plus factory to dealer incentives. So keep singing, but hurry, sales event ends soon.
I love what you do for me.
Got a deal on the Corolla, huh?
We both did.
I knew that.
Will this man make the critical difference in November? And what about his wife, the woman who took on rock and roll? Al and Tipper Gore sit down with Primetime Thursday.
We are continuing our discussion of the Pittsburgh newspaper strike. Mike Stout is an old union man who was laid off as a steel worker. Mr. Stout, I appreciate the strength of your feelings, but sometimes strong feelings lead to rash actions. Do you believe that to gain what they want, the unions should use violence if necessary or illegal actions?
First off, I think the violence that's being used right now is being used by the Scripps Howard Corporation against the workers and the families that were employed by the Pittsburgh Press. When you throw somebody out of their job...
When you say violence, you mean causing them to lose their jobs and using replacement workers?
That's correct. When you steal somebody's job, you steal their dignity, and you might as well go in their kitchen and steal the food off their table and the clothes off their kids' back, because that's what you do when somebody's been on a job anywhere from 20 to 45 years and you take their job away from you. There ain't nothing left for them but minimum wage jobs, and you can't feed a family and pay your bills on minimum wage. I went through a plant shutdown. I saw 6,000 people I worked with lose their job. I saw 5 people within a year commit suicide. 73 people I knew personally die of strokes, heart attacks, and cancer. These guys and these families know what's in store for them, and Pittsburgh knows what's in store for them. Well, we're not going to let some corporate raiders come in here from Cincinnati, wherever these yahoos are from, and eliminate these people's jobs and bring people in to steal them. This is not a union issue alone. This is a working people's issue. This is a Pittsburgh issue. These workers were born and bred here in Pittsburgh,
Mr. Stout,
and we're going to stand up with them.
All right, sir, I understand that, and I understand how strongly you feel, but my question was, do those strong feelings lead you to believe that violence, if some people feel it's necessary, ought to be used?
I don't think violence should be used. I think the violence is being used against the companies. I think when the law goes against the people, sometimes the people got to go against the law. Sometimes you got to sit down and you got to stand up, or whatever you got to do to protect your job and your family. And I support those workers and praise them, the ones that sat down and blocked the trucks from going out, and I hope they do it every time they try to go out.
Ms. Rita, in fact, that was what was said by the civil rights movement, that sometimes you do have to go against the law. Sometimes there are things that are greater than the law of the moment. Is that fair?
Correct. That's exactly what they're doing, and I
Well, I was asking Ms. Rita that question, Mr. Stout.
I would also say that the civil rights movement never openly advocated violence, that the things that the great leaders of the civil rights movement stood for, including Dr. Martin Luther King, were nonviolent resistance and determination in the face of violence and avoiding violence. And there are two sides to every coin. There are families who are being put out, people who work at the papers who are not able to report for work, people who are afraid to report for work because of violence, advertisers who are losing revenues, who will have to begin laying off in their stores. It's a reciprocal thing. It comes around in a large circle. And I'm not unsympathetic to labor. I've supported labor in many other strikes. The air traffic controllers in the early 80s are just one example. But I think in this case, the union is looking too far into the past and not forward enough.
Reverend Smith, sort this out for us a little bit. Where is a fair and a proper way for this to come out?
Well, I think nonviolent direct action is an appropriate means to try to resolve this issue. The African American community has suffered high rates of unemployment for quite a while, and needed others to come to our assistance to hear what our young men are saying, that the jobs are just not here for us. And when it was primarily an African American problem, there was not a whole lot of attention paid to it. But now it's beginning to affect a larger segment of the society, and everybody's beginning to see that we cannot allow corporate entities to reap all of the benefit, all of the profit, and reduce health care benefits and workers' benefits to the extent that they can barely make it. But you have to have an environment where employers can provide employment opportunities. And the only way that you can really work this out is for each party to be a good neighbor. and somehow, sometimes you have to speak forthrightly and a little harshly with people who will not hear.
Mr. Khan, it seems like neighborliness seems to have gotten lost in all of this.
It seems that way.
Mr. Khan, I was talking to Mr. Khan. We only got a moment left, Reverend.
I think your program, though, the timing is interesting because sitting between these folks and listening to these very articulate, their points of view, on the other hand, it's a kind of a positive moment. The newspaper agreed not to publish another paper today. I heard just recently that the newspaper and the union are agreed to sit down. I'm a PR man. I like to say the bucket's half full instead of half empty. I think this will be ironed out in the near future. It's a sad incident for us. And I'm very hopeful that we'll bounce back, the unions will get a fair deal, and the newspapers will too.
If there is a compromise, Mr. Stout, I've got about 20 seconds. If there is a compromise and some jobs are lost, will you feel that that's fair?
As long as those people are taken care of, I think it would be fair, and they're treated as the family they have been part of for the past 3 or 4 generations. I'd like to say in closing, too, thank you, Pittsburgh, for standing up for its working people.
All right. On that note, we'll leave it for just this moment, and I thank all 4 of you for talking to us tonight.
Thank you.
We'll be back in just a moment.
Congress votes itself a $23,000 pay raise. SNL's bailed out at taxpayer expense. Unemployment hits 8-year high. Congress bounces thousands of bad checks.
Last March, Time reported a major shift in voter attitudes. We just thought you'd like to know you're not alone. The angry voter. If it's important to you, you'll find it in Time.
In our universe, there is always the unknown, the unpredictable. All we can do is prepare for it.
AT&T is now installing Fast Start. It can detect a cable cut instantly, so 800 calls can get back in minutes instead of hours.
We can send flowers for any occasion, anywhere, but only if our 800 service is up and running. Our 800 service isn't just a phone line, it's a lifeline.
I miss you.
AT&T has the most reliable 800 service, period.
AT&T. Call us.
We built the Maytag refrigerator with shelves, bins, and drawers that will adjust to meet your changing needs in years to come, and solid heavy-duty parts to last for years to come.
Yo, Mom!
We can only guess what the world will be like in years to come, but it's nice to know that whatever the future holds, your Maytag will too. Buy one now and get the best warranty in the business.
Here goes my future.
At Ford Motor Company, we don't just build quality cars and trucks.
Customer Assistance Center, how may I
We
help
build
you?
relationships. Our Customer Assistance Department assists over 4,000 people a day on everything from warranties to how to program a keyless entry system. It's part of a whole philosophy at Ford that's rapidly changing the ownership experience.
Well, it's important to us that you're happy with your car. Thanks for calling Ford.
Ford Motor Company. Quality is job one. It's working. It's working.
On the next Good Morning America, when Medicare isn't enough, new laws for supplemental health insurance. Plus Isabella Rossellini here on Good Morning America.
Later on World News Now, you can watch the Iraqi evening news, how Iraq's state television reported the stare-down with the West. That is later tonight on this ABC station. But that is our report for tonight. I'm Forrest Sawyer in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
If you wish a videocassette version of Nightline, the cost is $14.98 plus $3.95 shipping and handling. If you wish a printed transcript, please send $4 to 1535 Grant Street.
Mike, in tonight's Channel 11 News background report, prosperous papers. We're seeing how other papers in western Pennsylvania are doing now that the Press and Post-Gazette aren't publishing. Some surprising numbers for you in our next half hour.
Pennsylvania Religious Coalition. At a news conference today, they weighed in with their opinion on that long strike. They've taken the side of striking workers, and today they called on the press company based in Cincinnati to put the interest of the public first when formal negotiations resume next week.
Is urging both. And Rice has some answers.
Denise speaking, may I help you?
Questions have been pouring in to the Post-Gazette circulation staff as the morning of a new era nears. The big one?
People want to make sure that when we flip the switch on Monday and get back into publication, that they get a new copy of the new Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
The answer?
Okay, if you got the Post or the Press in the past, before the strike, you will receive the service again.
No need for subscribers to do anything, and it doesn't matter whether you used to get the PG or the press.
We dovetailed our list together to make sure that everyone receiving the paper prior to May will get a paper on Monday.
The Post-Gazette assumes subscribers want both its daily and new Sunday morning edition. For any other arrangement, you'll have to call. The way many people get their paper will be new, too. The PG will begin to phase in regional distribution centers, where adult contractors will come and pick papers up around 1 a.m. and immediately begin delivering to subscribers.
They should get a later edition, and they should get the paper on a more timely basis.
The return to the paper also brings a chance to get something for nothing, at least for a while. Previous subscribers will get the first 2 weeks delivered free. Non-subscribers can call and get the same deal. If you're buying your paper on the street, however, it'll still cost you 35 cents daily, $1 on Sunday, just like old times. Ken Rice, WTAE 4 News.
And we are now going to head back out to Susan Brozick, who is at the Post-Gazette's headquarters, where obviously the final preparations are in motion to get the papers out on the street. Susan.
Well, that's right, Jack. As you said, the new Post-Gazette won't be out until Monday, but there's already plenty of activity here at what is now the Post-Gazette building on the Boulevard of the Allies. Workers went to great heights this morning, putting up green and white banners on top of the building, proclaiming this the morning of a new era. And newly painted delivery trucks and printing presses are getting ready to roll. Now, the PG is hoping for a weekday circulation of around 300,000, a Sunday circulation of around 550,000. But first, there is, of course, the job of winning back readers who have been without a Pittsburgh paper since delivery workers went on strike May 17th.
Going to be buying it, and I'm very pleased that we're going to have a paper on the streets again.
I don't think so.
You're not going to buy it?
No.
Why not?
Well, when they went out on strike, I'd already paid a month in advance, and I just have used other sources of news. You know, they took too long.
I think I've missed the sports quite a bit, but I've gotten used to the USA Today, though, so it's going to be a tough choice. I imagine I'll go back to the Post-Gazette, but it may take a little while.
I think it's a good thing that they're coming back, because you missed the paper because of basically as far as the classified and looking for a place to live sometimes. I think it'll bring the city more money, too.
I work at the Pittsburgh Courier. It's going to hurt us a little bit, because a lot of people are saying now that the press is back, they're going to the press. You know, it's going to hurt us, and our paper sales are going to go down. But it's a good thing it's back, because they have a little more stuff than we do.
Now, there's a lot on tap today. Coming up at 2 o'clock, there's an ecumenical prayer service of Thanksgiving for the return of a daily newspaper to Pittsburgh. That's at 2 o'clock at St. Pamphilus Church in Beechview. And then at 7:30 tonight over at the Hilton, the employees of the Post-Gazette, 1,400 employees and union members, will be gathering for a celebration over at the Hilton, 7:30 tonight. We'll have more on that. For now, reporting live from downtown, I'm Susan Brozick. Jack, back to you.
Thanks, Susan. They obviously have a lot to celebrate. When the first PGs roll off the presses, we'll be there with full team coverage. You can watch for our live special report starting tomorrow night at 11 o'clock. Then those live...
The future. Good evening. The Hilton Hotel Ballroom was packed tonight as William Block Sr., old employees and new, nearly 2,000 of them, celebrated the return of something Pittsburghers haven't seen in 8 months, the Post-Gazette. Teamsters, former press editorial staffers, and longtime Post-Gazette employees gathered in the same room to swap stories and talk about the monumental task ahead of them, getting a newspaper written, published, and delivered on the streets of Pittsburgh come Monday morning. I asked some of them tonight what the PG's new slogan, Morning of a New Era, means to them.
It means that we finally have the predictability and security in our lives that the members have long awaited for.
For a lot of people, what will probably just fade into the past and become history, and this is what will be remembered.
We have the best talents for both papers. It's going to be a paper we've never had before in Pittsburgh. We had 2 good papers, now we'll have 1 great paper.
And Pittsburgh has just 1 more day to wait for the return of a daily newspaper. The PG will resume publishing with Monday morning's edition. Susan Brozick reports on preparations, which continue around the clock.
From the Greeks at Pitt to the Post-Gazette building downtown, they're hanging banners high and low.
Hey, it's the beginning of a new era.
An era that can't come soon enough for workers upstairs who are already working on the Post-Gazette's January 18th edition.
It'll feel great. I mean, this last 8 months been the longest 8 months of my life.
The Post-Gazette has a huge 80-page paper planned for Monday. Compare that to the old days before the May delivery workers strike, when you could find about 26 pages in a Monday PG.
Glad to be back working, I'll tell you that.
At St. Pamphilus Church in Beachview, Pittsburghers joined the Post-Gazette's new family. They held an ecumenical prayer service to give thanks for the return of the Daily and to pray for its future.